Leviticus 11, New American Standard Version. The Lord spoke again to Moses and to Aaron, saying to them, "Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, These are the creatures which you may eat from all the animals that are on the earth. Whatever has a divided hoof, showing split hoofs, and chews the cud, among the animals that you may eat. Nevertheless, you are not to eat of these among those which chew the cud, or among those which have a divided hoof. The camel, for though it chews the cud, it does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean to you. Likewise, the rock hyrax, for though it chews the cud, it does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you. The rabbit also, for though it chews the cud, it does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean to you. And the pig, for though it has a divided hoof, and so it does show a split hoof, it does not chew the cud. It is unclean for you. You shall not eat any of these flesh, nor touch their carcasses. They are unclean to you. These you may eat of whatever is in the water, everything that has fins and scales in the water, in the seas or in the rivers you may eat. But whatever is in the seas and in the rivers that does not have fins and scales, among all the teeming life of the water, and among all the living creatures that are in the water, they are detestable things to you, and they shall be detestable to you. You may not eat any of their flesh, and you shall detest their carcasses. Whatever in the water does not have fins and scales is detestable to you. Moreover, these you shall detest among the birds. They are detestable, not to be eaten: the eagle, the vulture, and the buzzard, the red kite, the falcon in its kind, every raven in its kind, the ostrich, the owl, the seagull, and the hawk in its kind, the little owl, the cormorant, and the great owl, the white owl, the pelican, and the carrion vulture, the stork, the heron in its kind, the hoopoe, and the bat. All the winged insects that walk on all fours are detestable to you. Yet these you may eat among all the winged insects that walk on all fours, those which have jointed legs above their feet with which to jump on the earth. These of them you may eat: the locusts in its kind, the devastating locust in its kinds, the cricket in its kinds, and the grasshopper in its kinds. But all other winged insects which are four-footed are detestable to you. By these, moreover, you will be made unclean. Whoever touches their carcasses becomes unclean until evening. And whoever picks up any of their carcasses shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. As for all the animals which have divided hoof, but do not show a split hoof, or do not chew the cud, they are unclean to you. Whoever touches them becomes unclean. Also, whatever walks on its paws, among all the creatures that walk on all fours, are unclean to you. Whoever touches their carcasses becomes unclean until evening. And the one who picks up their carcasses shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. They are unclean to you. Now these are to you the unclean among the swarming things which swarm on the earth: the mole, the mouse, and the great lizard in its kind, the gecko, the crocodile, the lizard, and the sand reptile, and the chameleon. These are to you the unclean among all the swarming things. Whoever touches them when they are dead becomes unclean until evening. Also, anything on which one of them may fall when they are dead becomes unclean, including any wooden articles or clothing, or a hide or a sack, any article of which use is made, it shall be put in the water and be unclean until evening. Then it becomes clean. As for any earthenware vessels into which one of them may fall, whatever is in it becomes unclean, and you shall break the vessel. Any of the food which may be eaten on which water comes shall become unclean, and any liquid which may be drunk in any vessel shall be unclean. Moreover, everything on which part of their carcass may fall becomes unclean. An oven or a stove shall be smashed. They are unclean and shall continue as unclean to you. Nevertheless, a spring or a cistern collecting water shall be clean, though the one who touches their carcasses shall be unclean. Now, if a part of their carcass falls on any seed for sowing, which is to be sown, it is clean. But if water is put on the seed and a part of their carcass falls on it, it is unclean to you. Also, if one of the animals dies which you have for food, the one who touches its carcass becomes unclean until evening. He too who eats some of its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. And the one who picks up its carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Now every swarming thing that swarms on the earth is detestable, not to be eaten. Whatever crawls on its belly and whatever walks on all fours, whatever has many feet, in regard to every swarming thing that swarms on the earth, you shall not eat them, because they are detestable. Do not make yourselves detestable through any of the swarming things that swarm, and you shall not make yourselves unclean with them, so that you become unclean. For I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourself therefore, and be holy, because I am holy. And you shall not make yourselves unclean with any of the swarming things that swarm on the earth. For I am the Lord who brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your God. So you shall be holy, because I am holy. This is the law regarding the animal and the bird and every living thing that moves in the waters and everything that swarms on the earth, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, and between the edible creature and the creature which is not to be eaten.